Tēnā koutou katoa, bonjour. Welcome back to the breakdown on the road from Lyon. A lot to discuss today, Sam Whitelock and the incredible milestone that he has reached for the All Blacks over the weekend. A brilliant performance. Have the All Blacks finally found their best 23? We'll discuss it. Plus Ranfurly Shield madness. Mills Moliina, Jeff Wilson, Sir John Kirwan, you two are both shaking your heads. JK, you don't look impressed. It's been a weekend of highs and lows for Hawke's Bay. They won the Ranfurly Shield against Wellington in the final round of the NPC, and they've all but lost it. They dropped it, they've broken the shield. Investigations are underway. It never would have happened on your watch, JK, and you held it for about 10 years. Well,
I mean, it's such a beautiful shield. It's just been redone. Peter Whatialofa, who was an amazing man, may he rest in peace, he was our minder, and it was his job to make sure that we looked after it, no matter what happened. But just don't lie to us. That's bullshit. You didn't drop it and break it. Something's happened. And just, rugby's a value-based game. Just tell the truth. Because if you're not going to tell the truth, I reckon we just take it off you. It's too important to our game. Or NPC shouldn't play for it anymore. Let's just make it the Super Rugby competition, because that annoys me. What annoys me is someone's lied. And it's too important to the history of our game. So either ban them or do something, but just don't pass the ball. You know, the NZR, oh no, let's get... No, take responsibility for what you've done. Really annoys me. That's our game, right?
Well, if you want to be treated like a professional, behave like one. And times have changed. It's not good enough. Now, I never had the privilege of winning the Ranfurly Shield, and it's one thing I'm bitterly disappointed about in my career, and I've never touched it for that very reason. I got brought up with the fact, if you didn't earn the right to put your hands on it, no different to the Webb Ellis Trophy, then I don't touch it. You've got to wear gloves to wear that. And the fact that it hasn't been treated with the respect it deserves, there needs to be ramifications. And I'm like you, I don't want the ball passed around between New Zealand Rugby, the Players Association, Hawke's Bay, putting it all on the players. There has to be accountability, there has to be responsibility taken by someone or everybody so that this doesn't happen again. Look, it's just not good enough. I mean, this is a treasured part of our history, of our game. And instead of us talking about a Rugby World Cup, this is what's leading the headlines. It's an absolute disgrace, and there needs to be action taken.
Totally agree. I think this is probably the most prestigious trophy or shield that is part of New Zealand history, and the way that it's been treated. I often wonder whether it actually means that much to the younger generation. Like, I've heard stories of what sort of happens with the shield, and that's sort of unspoken about. But it's almost like they've wanted to parade the fact it's broken, to put it on social media. Yes, I understand nowadays are totally different. But there needs to be, I suppose, a collective understanding, or someone needs to take the fall in terms of what's happened. And that's probably at the top. They need to get under and make sure that it's investigated well.
It's a really good point. Does it still have the same meaning with this younger generation, JK, that it did when you were playing? Yeah,
look, I just think blaming the younger generation or saying the younger generation is different, that's not acceptable in our game. We've all done things wrong. I've done things wrong when I played for the All Blacks. We've all done them, and we had to fess up to the players and to our peers and to our coaching group. Might have been missing a bus, might have been out late, might have been doing whatever. Someone has broken this. They need to step up and apologise for what they've done, and then we'll forgive and forget and move on. But don't lie. That's not a generational thing. That's a values-based thing. And, the CEO of Hawke's Bay Rugby needs to stand up, do his investigation. The person who's done it needs to stand up and apologise to the rest of the rugby community, and then we can move on. But it's the dishonesty that I don't like, and that's not part of any generation. You can't hide behind a generational thing. It's just what we need to do, so...
It's a real shame that we're talking about this. We should be celebrating the fact that Wellington had kept the shield for the entire year, or the fact that Hawke's Bay had won it back. But let's keep our focus back in France. The William Webb Ellis Cup is on the line. We're going to go back and relive that brilliant performance from the All Blacks.
After losing their opening game to France and Paris, the All Blacks simply have to beat Italy here at Lyon this evening to keep their hopes alive in this 10th Rugby World Cup in France. The cross kick coming. Jordan! What a kick that was! Will Jordan scored. Here's Savia busting into the gap. Then he goes wide. Oh, that's a finish. Mark Talia. Beautiful pass to Geordie Barrett. Smith's going to get three. Heck
All Black taking over from Rich McCaw. Test match number 149.
Here's a chance for Jordan. Who's got the speed? The bounce! Oh, that's clever. Jordan scores. But only Savier's offload. How about that? And the All Blacks have been emphatic. 96 points to 17.
96 points, 13 tries. JK still thinks the All Blacks missed a trick by not hitting the ton. But a few big questions here. Is there value in the All Blacks having a massive blowout game like that 2 weeks before a quarterfinal? And what do you do now, Mills? Do you rest players? Do you keep the team together and keep it consistent? We've got a game in another few days.
I mean, what you've sort of seen that first sort of when they made those massive changes in that Uruguayan game, the Namibian game, is the fact that they are up to scratch. You know, as they come back, 9 changes in that, they look really sharp, and then they make another 9 changes, and they're pretty sweet as well. So I think there might be a couple. There's a few guys that have played the whole way through the tournament. You like some of the Nipo Laulalas, Bowden Barretts. Do you give guys an opportunity to come out, to actually start? What does the makeup look like in terms of the bench, Jeff, in terms of is there still an opportunity to look at a Lock Lucy or even an outside back?
I think there's some guys you'd like to get some more minutes. A Cam Roygaard for me, just to keep him rolling through and getting more and more comfortable playing on the World Cup stage. I get the sense, though, they're really comfortable with they know who the group is. And he's been so good, Ardie Savea. I'm wondering whether or not he maybe just have a week off. I don't have any doubts these guys who take a week off could prepare themselves and get ready to play again, JK, to get up for a quarterfinal. They've still got to get their 5 points, go about their business, but the other one I'd like to protect is Shannon Frizzell, because he was so good and so valuable in terms of his combination with Ardie. I think it would allow them to get more minutes into Dalton Papali'i and to give Sam Cane an opportunity to get some significant minutes as well. Gets Luke Jacobson some time. The backline's the one for me. If you make that change at fullback, all of a sudden we might see a combination that is a little bit different. Will Jordan could be at fullback, Damien McKenzie at first 5. He doesn't like any of this, which is great, because I'm throwing so many. Are you rolling out the top 7 again?
Totally disagree. No, I roll out everyone else. So the trouble is with this World Cup, which
there's a lot of trouble.
I actually agree with, because World Rugby's done the right thing. In the World Cups in the past, the second-tier nations had to play 3 times a week, and it was unfair. Top nations played every week. So to get all the fair rests, right, they've mixed it up a bit. The trouble is the break, right? So what's happened is we're playing Uruguay on Thursday. We've got 10 days before Ireland. But remember, if it's Ireland, remember we said, what's our bonus? Our bonus is that Ireland has got a really hard competition and they'll come in tired. So it's a time to freshen up. I think you've got to... I disagree with Cam Roygaard. I reckon he's one of these kids that he's good enough now. I don't think you just got to play him off the bench. Sam Cane needs to play. We haven't seen... Who hasn't had a chance? Lester Fa'anuku hasn't had a chance. Caleb Clark hasn't had a chance. And if you want to keep these guys in the game, you might get a late injury. These guys have to play. So I would make wholesale changes, put the guys that haven't played out there, and then you've got to freshen the guys up that are going to play against either Ireland or who knows. Scotland is still decent there. So I know it's a difficult one because you're worried about combinations, but I'd just go, right, who hasn't played, where you go.
I'm not as worried about combinations now, Mills. The fact, I think they know whether or not...
Mighty Williams in that 23? That strongest side?
Anyway. I mean, the strongest side, no. He hasn't taken over from Ethan de Groot. I mean, he hasn't done that just on the back of one performance where he's come off the bench against an Italian side that were beaten. They were done.
So the 23 is unchanged, the best 23?
No, we've got headaches, but I think what gives you comfort is the fact that you've got guys that have absolutely stepped in. You know that you can go away if you make wholesale changes. Those guys are actually rested to come back and they're even fresher. In the past, we haven't had that. We've had guys that have rested and they've come back. They've almost been a little bit sluggish. I'd say there'll be guys that will be needing sort of game time. Like Sam Cane, for instance, Geordie Barrett. Yeah. They look.
Frizzell.
You want to protect Frizzell, but he is. I think he still needs a bit of game time. It's guys that are on the fringe.
He can
talk Kiahos and stuff. How much game time do you give those guys? But you also got to remember, you don't want to lose cohesion within what they've got already. And so sometimes you do lose that when you do make wholesale changes in key positions.
Where did they get their cohesion? They got it off the park in Bordeaux amongst themselves, training with each other, going hard against each other.
At a vineyard.
No, they didn't. No, because they weren't.
Because that's the thing.
They went to work there. And you talked to them, the players, and they worked hard. Yeah. And this was inter-squad competition. Those two teams...
You're telling me they went to Bordeaux and didn't go to a vineyard?
Yeah. They may have gone to a vineyard or a chateau or two. Don't get me wrong, but ultimately they went to work and they could do that. Given the time they've got, they play on Thursday. It's not until the following weekend.
Yeah.
They'll get those hit-outs. You can work Shannon Frizzell and Adi Savea in terms of their conditioning without having to play a game to prepare them. They're good enough to do that.
Well, they've proved that, right?
They've proved that, right? So that's why I think they've got all these options in front of them. I would just like to protect a couple of guys to make sure they're there, key guys who have been so influential for the All Blacks
I actually don't think you can think like that, Goldie. I understand what you're saying.
I can think like that.
I know you can, but I just don't think you can think like that in the modern game. You know, I think Frizzell made a huge difference. The biggest difference that I liked was that he freed up Artie because he's carrying the ball. He's a hard ball carrier. He smashes people. I still think one more game's not going to hurt him because then he's got 10. And get him off just after half-time.
But, yeah, look at him. But get him off. Yeah.
Get him off.
We're going to protect him when he's done 40 minutes of work.
The old hook.
OK.
There were some really interesting comments after that game. Ian Foster basically has put a challenge out to the Rugby World, JK. He said there were 27 minutes of ball and play time between South Africa and Ireland. Against Italy and the All Blacks, it was a totally different spectacle. And now the world needs to decide what kind of game of rugby they want to watch going forward.
What's that called?
The Mexican wave.
Mexican wave. That means
not
on
a very
board.
good one, by the way. Not a very good one.
No, that means on board. Like, I firmly believe that means on board. So last night in the South African Tongan game, and I thought Tongan were much better, Mills. I thought they played a whole lot better. I thought Luke Pearce, the referee, was getting back to some of that old, I'm gonna coach these guys and ref the others. So I think we need to be aware of that. But when people are doing Mexican wave, they're bored. Right? And I was bored during that game because it's stop-start. Now, the game needs to change. We're an anaerobic game. We need to be an aerobic game. We need to get our numbers up. So, rightly so, if the game's played how we want it to be played, because I'm pretty sure South Africa don't want to play like that, because they just don't play like that.
Be careful, JK.
I don't care. It's true. Like, do you want your team to play like that? Do you want your team to play like that? Maul, penalty kick, maul, scrum, slow it down. If that's how you want to play, I'm cool with that. But I don't want to see the game like that. Otherwise, we just have Mexican waves 4 times a game.
Well, look, this is the rabbit hole you can go down continually about the fact there is a difference between the way teams play the game. And South Africa play a certain style. England play a certain style of game. Obviously, the Wallabies, the All Blacks, France is somewhere in the middle. We've got Ireland who like to hold on to the ball. You've got variety. But in the end, Mills, we're spending a lot of time talking about the atmosphere in and around the stadium, in the crowd. We're spending more time talking about that rather than actually what's happening on the field, because ultimately, when it comes down to it, defences are still winning in the big games, Mills. Defences are standing up. The set piece is still the be-all and end-all. When the push comes to shove, the Springboks against Tonga, they went to the front 8, and they just kept going. And that's how they win games, and it allows them to dominate in areas. But ultimately, as a fan, you're seeing more kicks, one-pass carries than you are actually passing. And that's a problem. If you're talking about entertainment, and this is what Ian Foster, he believes, and he obviously wants to play the game a certain way, Mills, that certainly helps us to an extent. And ultimately, he's put the challenge down. I think this is on World Rugby, because this is the flow-down effect of, this is the pinnacle of the game. This is the example being set around the world. And if you want people to grow up wanting to play the game, what is it they're seeing? Who is it they enjoy watching playing? It's like when you talk about football, for as long as I can remember, we talked about Brazil because they played the beautiful game.
Yeah, that's the challenge I've got, right? I mean, I know what you're saying, JK, in terms of, you know, before we left New Zealand, Sir Bill Beaumont said they wanted an exciting game that fans would sort of, you know, turn on and be intrigued by how this fast-flowing game was. We don't have that. But if your strength is to slow it down and go in more, and when you look at the style that the All Blacks play, it's whether you want to go to that style. Now, if I was South Africa, why would I? If I was England, why would I go to that style? You've seen in the past, they go to the style that suits them, they'll win a Rugby World Cup. So what do you do in terms of World Rugby? Do you say, hey, you've got to change the brand of rugby so it's so exciting and because it suits the All Blacks? No way. So I get what Ian Foster's saying. The key now for Ian Foster's team is, OK, they need to try and figure out a way when it does get to that stop-start that they come out and go, well, it's stop-start. 1, we're giving away penalties, so they go 5 away, you know, and that allows teams to pin the corners and then suit their style. And 2, we've got to stop making mistakes. That's the challenge for them, because you can't see England or South Africa changing their style to go and try and beat the All Blacks. The only team I would say would be Ireland. I think they're bullish to go, hey, we can play that style too, and we'll match you, and then if we want to slow it down, we'll go to the corners as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. So it's too late. And what Uncle Bill Beaumont and the rest of the World Rugby need to do is make changes so that we're all equal. Because it's left too much to the refs or interpretation. So, and I asked the scrum guy this the other day, Fabio Ongoro, how quick can you do a scrum? He reckons you can get a scrum set in a minute. How long does it take to kick a penalty to the throw-in? He reckons you can do it in 45 seconds, right? So we just speed the game up like that. So no one's got a choice, right? You go on about the injuries, right? Get the guy off, put someone on, and if he's okay, give him a little bit of time and put him back on. We just need to speed it up so we go from 29 minutes to 44 minutes, and then everyone will adapt.
JK, are you still upset that you've never asked Jason Ryan how long it takes to set a scrum?
One job he has.
It was 2 weeks ago.
One job.
I've got multiple jobs, thank you very much.
I've got to say, though, like the referees, he's been, like Matthew Carley was really good in the weekend.
Oh.
You know, he's changed a lot since that first game of the Rugby World Cup, and he let the flow happen.
Yeah,
so
but there's two teams wanting to play.
Yeah.
Italy wanted to play. They came out with the intention of playing because they're unorthodox. Let's be honest, a couple of teams we have talked about that we've enjoyed watching are Uruguay and Portugal. I mean, you watch them because they're unorthodox.
Portugal are good.
Yeah, but you watch the way that they play the game. They try and move the ball. They're a little bit unorthodox. They play inside, outside. They go wide. They get tackled behind their advantage line. Doesn't matter. You know, they're not trying to out-muscle sides. Yeah. They're going to the fact that these are the things that we can do that might stress the opposition. Japan are the same. I mean, ultimately, they're more fun to watch, let's be honest. And maybe that's what, you know, you have to start considering is that, you know, if you watch them play the game and they're not having success, why is that? And it's pure and simply because they're getting dominated up front.
So World Rugby need to stop talking about it, right? They need to stop saying we want to see a game. They need to make change. Full stop. Point, gone, I'm out.
Thank you. I've been waiting for that for about 5 minutes. But when we talk about the All Blacks, we often talk about legacy. Usually it is about the team rather than individuals. But one man has risen above 149 test matches for Sam Whitelock, a legacy that calls record of 148, but 149 mils over such a lengthy career since 2010. Is this a number that will ever be broken? And where does he now sit in the All Blacks pantheon of greats?
Oh, he is an absolute great, isn't he? I don't think it'll be broken again. He'll go to the 150 mark. And you're right, you know, considering sort of the position he's played, you know, some of the injuries he's had as well, and how well he's kept himself, you know, up to speed. The game's changed also since he first, you know, came onto the scene in 2010. So to be able to move like that, for such a player in a position that's, you know, heavily contested as well, and the physical nature of it, Jeff, outstanding.
We've had some high-quality locks over a long period of time, and I think in the modern day he's the best of them, because when you talk about resilience, you talk about the impact he has on the game, the core roles that he does, and essentially if you can't do that, you're not going to get selected. If your work at line-out time's not good, if your work at scrum time's not exceptional, you're not going to get the call-up. And yes, we've had some great athletes, the likes of a Brodie Retallick, but for me, when you have the reliability, the intensity, the success he's had, not just with the All Blacks, but clearly with the Crusaders and Super Rugby, he'll go down. He has to be, to me. I think he is the #1 lock in terms of in the modern game. Now, look, we talk about Colin Meads and the great Colin Meads. You compare eras. Very difficult to do so. But everything he's done and where he's got to, I don't think it'll be broken. I don't think the modern player will stay long enough, around long enough. They're motivated by different things. There's opportunities overseas. He had a wee little brief time overseas, went to Japan, then came back, earned his right to be an All Black again. It's a remarkable feat, and, you know, his impact on the squad should not be underestimated.
Yeah, I always remember the big critter, Andy Hayden, may he rest in peace as well. You know, when I first got the jersey, he said, you know, do you want to be here a week or do you want to be here a decade and leave something in that jersey? And all of us have felt that pressure. And when you think about what Sam Whitelock's done, you know, it's all of our dreams to make the jersey better so that the next person comes along actually has to make it better. So forget all the accolades, you just think about that, what Sam Whitelock has done for that jersey now, because whoever comes into it and now has that. I mean, he took it off one of our greatest players ever, right? Richie McCaw. That in itself is a massive feat. So I think, but the most beautiful thing for me was seeing his mum and dad. You know, we all play for our families and stuff, but just to see the pride and joy and his siblings as well, who have been great rugby players in their own right, just a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much for sharing those beautiful words as well. If you ever wonder why JK looks so snazzy, I mean, he's part Italian, as we know, and the All Blacks are dressed by an Italian fashion brand called Replay. As part of the Groove Track this week, JK got to sit down with their owner, Matteo Senegale.
I am here with the owner, but mainly my friend, Matteo from Replay. Matteo, sponsor of the All Blacks. Got the World Cup here. We have Hussein here with us. A great evening. Is this something that you've been looking forward to?
Yeah, first of all, I'm a proud sponsor of All Blacks, and I'm really happy to be here for the World Cup. I mean, All Blacks is in my heart, and I brought actually, people that may inspire basically to really go beyond limits. So I thought actually Hussein is the proper, guy basically that can inspire us, for the rest of the World Cup.
And, you often inspire me because when I talk to you, you are like the All Blacks, you want to be the best. But some of your dreams for the brand, you have big dreams for it?
Yeah, I mean, we want to be basically, of course, the best. We want to deliver the best product. We want to have the best crowd. We want to build up the best community. And, that actually what make our morning quite interesting, because when you wake up, at least you have a goal which, empower you, to do things beyond limits.
And the All Blacks as a brand, what got you interested in them to start with?
Yeah, first of all, every brand, has an authenticity on values. And, I believe, All Blacks on that perspective basically, master basically the benchmark on values. I do believe that this is very important for a brand like mine, because I could be every day inspired by what you guys do every day, and how humble you are, and how determined you are to achieve goals, and how you protect your community. So that actually is everything about, our life. So I like to be part of that.
I'll tell you something pretty special about Matteo as well. So when you go to his business, the whole family's there. It's a family business,
Yes,
huh?
it's a family business.
So who in the family is?
I'm the second of 5 brothers, and all of them are with me, and that is community, So, but my family now is much larger because they have New Zealander, like a brother acquisition, and sister acquisition. So I'm really here to support the big All Blacks. Okay.
One big family, one big happy family.
Yeah, super.
Well, Pool A at the Rugby World Cup isn't as clear-cut as you think, with one round still to go. France sitting on top with 13 points. The All Blacks 3 behind, sitting on 10 mils. But Italy and the All Blacks right now, the equal amount of wins and losses so far at the Rugby World Cup. Of course, New Zealand, they take on Uruguay. Italy take on France in the final round. But the biggest talking point of this pool, Antoine Dupont, the World Cup superstar, the best player in the world, you all said that a few weeks ago, has been cleared to play just a few weeks after breaking his jaw. He's available to play against Italy this week. That is remarkable.
Absolutely remarkable. I mean, he's looking pretty good. I mean, I suppose nowadays in terms of the operations and things that they go through, pretty impressive. But he won't train much, you'd have to say. He won't train much.
Does he need to?
Well, I think you do when you're in that sort of position, because there's a lot of traffic in there. You're not just sort of sitting out in the wing or at fullback and sort of not expecting contact. He's right in amongst it, right in amongst in terms of the ball carry. He's such a big threat. And so he's going to have to take contact. He still has to tackle. I mean, what will that sort of do in terms of his, we know how tough he is in terms of his mental frame and heading towards that sort of contact stage, Jeff.
I don't think I'm mentally tough enough, to be honest. If I was playing, I don't think I'd have it in me. Look, it's a Rugby World Cup. You mentioned he'll do everything he possibly can after the injury, right, to get back. So they're clearly going to do that, JK. I think he has to play against Italy to give him the confidence, the self-confidence. If he believes he's going to be right a week later, to play this game, to go out there. Because if you roll him out in a quarter-final and he doesn't know, JK, in the heat of battle, I mean, you're not going to be at training. You're not going to be the player that runs directly at him to test him out, are you? You're not going to do that at training. You're not going to run that risk. I'd be concerned. So if he feels as though he can play against Italy, I think he should. Because I have no illusions. I think they'll beat them. I think France will have no issue getting over the top of them. Well, hold on. They just conceded 96. Well, hold on. You were almost disappointed we didn't score 100 on them. Let's be fair. So come on. Look.
Wait, is your wife talking to you after that, JK?
No. My problem is this. If you got 5 doctors, would they all say you're allowed to play? You know, you always get a doctor that says, OK, he's got a metal plate in his jaw, so I wouldn't play him against Italy. I'd give him as much time as I can. You cannot tell me a broken jaw and you put a steel plate, you operate, you're ready to go in 2 weeks. So, for me, I would give him as much time as he needs. My biggest concern for him is confidence, right? You've got a steel plate in your...
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
How do you go out there?
He can play. He has to feel as though...
But he needs more time to heal. He needs more time to heal.
I think you need more time to heal. The biggest concern for the French is all this attention that's on Dupont. How is that going to affect them? Because at some stage, they're going to have to say, well, hey, we're going to have to bite the bullet and just park that aside and trust in the guys that we have actually got. But I think you've got to rest and you've got to give him as much time as you can. I think they'll go past Italy. Sorry, JK. But I don't think he needs to play in this game because he's so important to this team, you know, and the more focus you have on him, I think they can actually be a distraction to the French outfit. And so I think they need to park it and actually come with an understanding that he's not going to play and give him all the time he can.
You don't need him until the quarterfinals.
It's a big call for France, but don't go anywhere. Keep watching the breakdown on the road from Lyon. We talk about the other pools and the other big matches coming up this week. But
playing under this penalty advantage as Moonga away for Papali'i. The cross kick coming. Jordan will join.
Wide ball thrown from Carreras. Here come Argentina again on that far side. Beautiful passing back in field. It's stunning to watch.
In a World Cup game, cross kick from Healy to Redpath. Redpath with the offload. And Chris Harris off to the left. That's where it's heading. Tuisova.
Second half from the Italians, and now here's a chance for Jordan. Kick and chase. Who's got the speed? The bounce! Oh, that's clever.
Jordan scores. Over on the other side. Kick through and the chase there. Pellegrini bounces up for it. Tonga will score one of the best tries here in Marseille. It's magic.
No, my hockey, my welcome back to the breakdown on the road from Lyon. Well, remember when South Africa replaced a hooker, Malcolm Marx, with a first five, Handré Pollard? He's finally made his mark on this Rugby World Cup and South Africa instantly look better. What do they do now at 10 mils? Do they put the experienced World Cup winning Handré Pollard back in the big games, or do you keep the exciting Manie Libbok?
I like Libbok. I think, you know, they've shown, they've given him, once they give him the sort of, I suppose, the reins and he goes out and then controls his side. The hard part now is Pollard looks so good. He looks really refreshed. He looks fit. He's organised, guys, well. And the goal kicking.
Amen.
That's the big thing, isn't it?
That's it, mate. Like, if you look at South Africa, they missed, 3 kicks against Ireland? They'll play him.
Oh, 100%. Handré Pollard's the guy for me. If you look at the way that they have played in the past, what they've done well, what they've got in front of them, look how good that the bench and impact they do have. They play in the right parts of the field. Defensively, he's strong. He'll kick his goals. Look, he's a proven winner, and he looks sharp.
But they don't want to
tournament. I said weeks before this tournament that Handré Pollard would play a part in this Rugby World Cup.
But they don't want to attack.
So that's why you're picking Pollard?
I'm not saying anything about
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
It's Pollard, exactly.
They want a kicking game. They want to kick from 9. They want to kick for 10. They want to get field position. They want to kick to the corners. They want a goal kick. So he plays.
Yeah, and they score their points. I mean, they play the territory game. Look, he's a proven winner, greatly successful. You know, I think for me, you know, timing's going to be everything in this Rugby World Cup. You know, that's what we're hoping the All Blacks have in terms of their personnel back. Which we managed to get against Italy. That's what they're looking at.
South Africa stick with a 7-1 bench, then Libbok doesn't even make the bench.
I know. I was just about to say that. But also the fact that they have got the luxury in Libbok coming off the bench if they chose to pick him, because he brings something totally different. The downside to his game is he's so inexperienced, and would he come off the bench and
Can he play enough positions?
Well, I don't think he could play in the hooker position, so that's probably his downfall.
I'm not convinced they'll stay at 7-1. I think they may... If Pollard's there, I think they may go back to 6-2. I've just got a sense that push the boundaries out, they keep pushing it. I'm thinking they might just give themselves a little bit of extra cover.
Well, I know everyone's been so disappointed about how the quarterfinals will play out on one side of the draw anyway, but it's made it so exciting in the race for Pool B because there is a huge matchup coming up that will determine who finishes 1, who finishes 2, who finishes 3 and who crosses over with the All Blacks in France. Ireland, Scotland still to come, JK. Any of those 3 teams can make it and any one of those 3 can drop out.
Well, you've got to have a bad game in the World Cup and win, right? So I think Scotland, I've been watching them for the last few years. I think they've done a great job. I think they can really play. And I think that game is critical and Ireland need to be on their game to beat Scotland. If Ireland play their best, they can beat Scotland. But if they have an off day, they need to be really careful. So I think that's the biggest game of the tournament. And obviously the other one is the Argentina and Japan game. But, you know, it's not going to be an easy game for Ireland, Goldie.
Yeah, Mills, I'm interested in your thoughts here because everything suggests that Ireland should win this game. I mean, Scotland haven't beaten them for a while now. And the nature of the dominance they have in certain areas. Scotland, look, they were really disappointing against South Africa. But I think Ireland are a different proposition and it might give them the chance to play the way they want to play. And if Finn Russell has one of his games, and I've been waiting for him to have one of his games, and there's a moment, we know he is world-class and he can do something special, it would have to be an incredible performance from Scotland. I think it's one step too far. If Ireland are the team that everyone thinks they are, this #1 team in the world, they're going to have to prove it this week and next week as well, and going forward. Ireland are under pressure. They have to perform again and again and again. The weight of expectations on them.
I think internal pressure. I think internally they're putting pressure on themselves to be best. If you look at the South African-Scotland game, Scotland held in the until half-time. That's going to be their biggest downfall because the Irish are going to bring pressure right throughout the whole game. Their game's balanced, they've got good players, they can break anything up from anywhere, and they've got a nice set piece. And so I can't see Scotland doing it, but, hey, it's a Rugby World Cup. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, what about the Wallabies? Their woes continue for another week. Of course, they need Fiji only need 1 point against Portugal in the final round. The Wallabies are now on a bye, so they just have to wait and see. Can you see the Wallabies going through? Fiji came very close to not winning that game on the weekend.
I think the nice thing about Portugal is coached by Patrick Lagacé, who I played against, a great coach, Coach Biarritz, and they are well drilled. What we saw from Fiji was a bit of nervousness in the game, dropping the ball. If they can play to their potential, I think they'll get their 1 point. So I think no matter what Australia say, unfortunately, I think their tournament is gone. If Fiji play to their ability, they will beat Portugal.
And they shouldn't even need to play to their ability. They had plenty of opportunities in that game on the weekend. They just made hard work for themselves, you know, and there was always, for me, an inevitability about it. I thought they were going to get the job done, and they did. They just made it look a little bit more difficult than they should have.
Not always comfortable.
No, they're not. But when they were supposed to win, they make it hard for themselves. Yeah. I think they'll learn a lot from this game to go into this one and get that 1 point.
OK, well, what about the other big game that JK mentioned? We're looking at Pool D now. It is Argentina, Japan. England are on top of this pool. They will go through. Argentina, Japan is immense.
Japan win.
Is this because you also can't go home to Japan
He's got so many
if you don't say
teams.
that, JK?
I just think that Argentina has lost their identity. Like, they played well the other day, but the opposition probably wasn't putting them under too much pressure. I just don't know this Argentinian team anymore. I used to know how they want to play. They'd wear you down. They'd have lots of high kicks, but then they'd have some flair in the back line. I just think they're a little bit confused about how they play, whereas Japan know how they want to play, and they haven't played that well yet. But I think they've got one performance in them, so I see them beating Argentina.
This is an Argentina team that has beaten the All Blacks twice in the last 3 years, Mel, since the last World Cup cycle.
Yeah, they've been really disappointing, this Rugby World Cup. They almost look really flat. Like there's a lot of energy that's been zapped out of them. You know, that game, that first one that they lost with, 14 men, 14 sort of English men, that really took a lot out of them, and they just haven't sort of... They've got the players, they have. But if you look at both teams, Japan seem to be going like this, whereas the Argentinians are just sort of flatlining a little bit. So they've been really disappointing, Jeff.
I have no idea on this game, none whatsoever, because I don't know which Argentinian team is going to turn up.
Yeah.
And that's been one of the difficulties about them in their history, is the fact you don't know which side is going to perform. And so I look at the group, they've got the ability, the talent, the experience, everything's actually there. We just haven't seen it at its best at this Rugby World Cup. These are the moments you want to bring that. And so I don't actually doubt their quality. Japan are going to be Japan. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to play the way they're going to play. High tempo. They're going to try and hold on to the ball. But I look at this and I can't pick a winner in this game because ultimately I don't know which side the Pumas are going to put out there and how it's going to perform. And so I really can't pick a winner. I actually have to sit on the fence on this one because I don't know.
I think that the coaching staff of Japan will have something up their sleeves. We know them both, right? Brownie and Jamie, they would have planned for this game. So I reckon they're going to bring something different. If we can get a referee that lets the game play, that will really, really help Japan. If we don't, it's going to help Argentina.
Well, this Rugby World Cup has been good for some of the smaller nations and an absolute disaster for others. The CEO of World Rugby, Alan Gilpin, is already talking about an expansion at the next Rugby World Cup in Australia from 20 teams to 24. Jeff, you're hot on this?
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, the fact it's hard enough at the moment, it's a long enough tournament, everyone at home is almost exhausted and we're just about halfway through. The fact there's been no flow and momentum, far too long between games, particularly in the pool rounds. The fact it's almost like all the teams want to be comfortable. And I know JK has talked about in this past, it was disadvantaging the smaller tier 2 teams in regards to the draw. That could be managed, I believe. There's too long between games. But if you throw in another 4 teams and who they might be and the margins you might start talking about between the top tier and the bottom sides, you're talking about, I think, some results which could end up embarrassing for the game.
It's deflection. Alan, it's deflection. What you need to be talking about, I mean, extending it is ridiculous, mate. Absolutely ridiculous. What you need to be talking about is how we speed up our game. How are you going to change the Constitution so we all get a fair vote, right, when we're coming to vote on big things? The third thing is, how are you going to create competition? Get the 6 nations to have a promotion relegation so Georgia and Romania can have some chance to get up and get the $65 million television right. Don't deflect in saying something like, we need more teams. Create competition so next time Portugal, or do what we did with Fiji. So next time we come to the World Cup, the teams that we have are more competitive. More teams is just like, I can't believe you said it, my man.
Well, it's whether or not he got asked the fact, do you think it's a good idea? And instead of saying no, the easiest thing was say, oh, yeah, that'd be great. The challenge they've got is there's a World Cup in, 8 years' time?
A CEO doesn't say that.
At US in America, right?
But Goldie, a CEO does not say that.
Well,
a CEO doesn't go, oh, yeah, you've asked me a question, I'm going to say yeah. Well, he should say, no, that's a dumb idea, next.
Yeah, because America have got a tournament. They're hosting the tournament. They didn't qualify for a Rugby World Cup. I mean, this is the challenge you have, is the fact that if they're hosting a Rugby World Cup and they're getting smacked every single game, Mills, it's not a bad it's a bad promotion for the game. You're trying to take it to an audience. I think he's sensing that, you know what, how do we get them involved and make sure they get opportunities to play in competitive games?
Well, it's the 4 years in between the Rugby World Cups. It's a competition. It's the regular test matches that they have. I mean, you're even talking about the likes of Samoa. I mean, they've had limited opportunities to actually play regular sort of test matches. So how do you build that? That's what they've got to be thinking about, instead of adding an extra team to then add another bye. Mate, we're going to have a tournament that's going to be 6 months long all of a sudden, you know, and that's what we don't need.
Competition is the only way forward in our game. So the championship needs to add Fiji and then have a second tier, bring the Americans in.
Well, they're talking about that already.
Relegation.
Japan's coming in.
We've got to do it, mate. I'm sick of people talking about stuff.
We have to do it.
We've got to do it. Oh, no, we've got to wait the next cycle. No, put Fiji into the championship now, have promotion relegation, so whoever comes last has to play against Georgia or Romania. They have a second-tier competition, and you head towards that. But let's do it now, Alan. Let's do it now. That means at the end of this World Cup, change the rules, create some competition and spend some of your $550 million actually doing this. We don't need more teams.
Okay.
Sorry.
Are you finished, JK?
I'm glad I brought up that subject because I knew that's what would happen. I knew exactly what would happen.
I thought you were hot on it, but JK, you've been quite grumpy today.
Well, I just think we're too slow-moving as an organisation. I look at rugby league. I watched the rugby league final. They changed some rules a couple of years ago. They got 50 minutes real time. It was non-stop, that final. Non-stop, that rugby league final. So we're either going to change our constitution and move faster, or we're going to be saying the same things
and
in
we'll be
4 years'
further
time.
behind, and we'll get further behind.
The passion is coming because you all care about the game, which is so important, isn't it? Don't go anywhere because there is a massive weekend of NPC action coming up. It is the final 8.
Kick's been charged, and Dallas McLeod is in for Canterbury. Shane Clark has a go, and he scores. Chirifi waits on the left, they don't need him. Rowe, Cook Savage sends the pass away. Oh, beautifully worked.
They're wrapping around Springer, drawing to Nankovo, and they're going to go in just like that.
Coming across again, space again, Jacob up the park, and he'll get an easy one under the stick. Nataya came from the corner, and plenty are in. Numbers out on the right side, it's going to be down the line. A long time coming. Look at the celebrations from the Hawke's Bay Magpies.
Great to have you joining us on the breakdown on the road. Jeff is happy because Southland picked up a win in 2023, but we're not talking about that. We're moving on from the regular season because the quarterfinalists have been found and there are some massive matchups, JK. Mills, we cannot go past the old rivalry, Auckland against Canterbury in the first round. One goes through, one doesn't.
Yeah, we were talking about the Shield before, so whenever you talk about NPC or the Shield, for me, it's Canterbury-Auckland. You know, it's edged in my memory. Some classic encounters, and really they are the old foe. So for me, Auckland have been a little bit inconsistent. I haven't seen a lot of the games, but I've seen some of the results. Snuck past Northland, so, you know, it's just a one-off. You're in the one-off footy.
Yeah, and that's what the playoffs are all about. You know, Canterbury are Canterbury. There's a reason they've got so many titles. The fact when the game's on the line, the pressure's there, and they've got a strong squad. I mean, I think ultimately for me, though, this is still Wellington's competition to lose. Yes, they lost to Shield in a remarkable game, but they're stacked. They've got a great side. I mean, they're playing Waikato. Waikato have been the same, very inconsistent, haven't played to their potential. I can't see them getting beaten this weekend.
1v8, that game that you're talking about, Wellington against Waikato, who have been coming right at the business end of the season, right? They knocked over Canterbury last weekend.
Yeah.
Now they play the defending champions.
Yeah, they did, and they'll be a lot hungrier for it too. You know, I mean, they played them early on in the rounds and had a heavy defeat, and so everything to play for. I'm with you. I think this is Wellington's competition to lose. I think the way they've sort of gone about it, they've been convincingly beating other teams, apart from obviously Hawke's Bay, you know, taking the Shield from them. But, you know, I'll go back to the Canterbury and Auckland games. You know, I was part of that sort of coming through just after you, JK. They're massive. And there's still a bit in there in terms of both teams, the hatred that's there, the tribalism. So I'm hoping that the blue and whites can get up.
Well, there's also hatred between the Bays, the Bay of Plenty and the Hawke's Bay. If what you three said was correct at the very start of the show, ban them now, JK, is what I think I heard. Well, Bay of Plenty obviously go through to the semi-finals.
So where have you got a place, a house? Where you from? Oh, that's
No,
right.
you just
Bay of
bring
Plenty.
you just bring Counties Monaco up.
Oh, you just bring them back in
Straight away.
Yeah, straight in.
Straight in, next best.
Someone needs to tell them they're probably in recovery mode. We know we do when you finish the season. Look, the other one I'm really excited about is Taranaki Tasman. And if Stephen Pettifetter's involved, and I said right from the start of the season with them, he's the best first five available playing NPC rugby. And when he's playing for them, it makes a massive difference. So if he's involved in that contest, look, Tasman are a team that have been there or thereabouts for a long, long time. And last weekend there were so many upsets, so many surprises in the final weekend. I think we'll see one or two maybe in this first round.
Well, playoffs time for the NPC, but the final round in the Rugby World Cup before we hit the real money, JK. What do you want to see from the All Blacks against Uruguay in 2 days' time?
Oh, similar performance. I think it's really, really important that whoever plays, they go out there and they're really clinical. They continue to put a line in the sand and say, we're here. So that real good 80-minute performance is what I'll be looking for from them. I really hope we see Fiji go through. No disrespect to Australia, but I think Fiji deserve to go through. I'd love to see Japan go through. So there's a lot in the last round.
When the All Blacks are selected, that's when I'll decide how I want to see the game played out. Because if it's the top side, you do need a follow-up performance because the expectations are you continue to back up. If they make the changes, if it is a different combination, it's about them just getting the job done and playing well, like they did against Namibia. As it was really clinical, looked accurate, high energy, plenty of tempo, just keeping the momentum going. So there's toss-up for me about what I'd like to see. But ultimately, I will say this. I'd like to see Sam Cane get through a good bit of work. You know, a good 60 minutes, 65.
80.
Or 80.
He's got 10 days to recover.
Yeah,
I think he's got to play the whole thing.
I would really like to see that just for him and for the squad. If their skipper and leader goes out and has a really strong game, I think it would just give the selectors and the crew just another wee lift in confidence.
Interesting last round, isn't it? For some teams in different pools, there's still an opportunity to be able to get through to the quarterfinals. For others, you know, you'd say that they are going to go through, and you know, a win sort of does it. It does a lot in terms of the confidence leading into and also momentum leading into the quarterfinals. And so this it's actually an intriguing last sort of round, you know, because you're right, Fiji could possibly go through. There's a big game against, you know, Japan and Argentina. For us as the All Blacks, you're right, consistency. Once they pick that side, you know, what sort of team are we actually going to get? And for players like Sam Cane, the Geordie Barretts that sort of haven't had much game time, also the guys that are on the verge that haven't seen a lot of the Rugby World Cup, you know, do they play a part? You know, because effectively, if they don't, they possibly won't have any more part in the competition.
Well, guess what? It is almost that time. We're less than 2 weeks away from the playoffs, the business end that you have been waiting for so long, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us on Breakdown on the Road from Lyon. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Enjoy the action. Mā te wā.